20일. 필드 방문 소개.
Nice to meet you. I'm Minho Park from Best Accounting Corporation.
Hello Minho. I'm Claire and I heard a lot about you from Phil. Phil praised you a lot for being an expert on consolidation accounting.
It's a pleasure to hear. This is my business card.
Yes, here is mine. Oh, you are a manager?
Yes, I recently got promoted. Are the financials ready by the way?
Yeah, we managed to have the BS and PL ready last night. I'll get a flash drive for you with the financials in it.
Sounds good. How can we get access to the internet?
I called the IT department this morning. Is it 4 of you altogether? I asked them to create 4 IP addresses for you.
Right. How may I use this phone?
For extension, just press the last 3 digits on the number shown on my business card. The last numbers on my business card is 7890 and if you just press 890, you will get hold of me. For your information, last 4 numbers start with a 7 for every one of us here. So if we make an extension call, we always leave the 7 out. To access outgoing calls, press 0 first.
Appreciate your explanation. Where can I find the bathroom and the pantry?
If you go out of this room and walk left for about 20 meters, there's a door on the right-hand side. Go past that door by placing the ID card on the reader and you'll see the bathroom on your left. The pantry is opposite the bathroom.
Sounds lovely. Could you give me a call once the IP addresses are ready?
Sure. Well then, let me get back to my seat and get the financials ready for you.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 22. 자료 요청서 작성.
I'm about to send you the data request form. You may use the items we requested last year as a reference and could you fill it out bearing in mind what is required this year?
Sure. It looks like the breakdown of other accounts payable was not obtained last year. Shall I put it on the list?
As far as I can recall, as it was said that there were too many items on it. Thus not meaning much doing an analytical review with it, and the client didn't come up with it. Could you talk to the client once again? It may take some time, but I believe the client is capable of coming up with it.
Okay. Shall I request the updated version of the fair value valuation report on the unlisted stock Korea Power as of the year end?
Yes, please. By the way, as we are now in the middle of January, it seems difficult to obtain a valuation report prepared as of the year end. I think I heard that the client has obtained one as of end of September last year, so we may put that on the list. We may be able to obtain the updated version in early February and be able to do an update on it.
Okay. I'll go through the list and will ask you if I need to add anything new.
By the way, do not use too much of your time in filling out this form. There was someone who was spending nearly half a day on it last time. Use minimum of your time on such an administrative work, focus on the audit instead. Use about 30 minutes maximum on filling out the data request form.
Okay. Be right back at you.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 23. 자료 수령 후 이상 유무 확인.
Hello? You must be Claire, right? This is Minho Park from Best Accounting Corporation. And I'm calling to ask you a couple of questions on the data we obtained this morning.
Hi Minho. What can I help you with?
I'm going through the statements of financial position at the moment. And it looks like the difference of the retained earnings does not agree to the net profit on plural. I don't see any capital transactions during the period such as a capital increase.
Oh, really? I remember including all the last year's final adjustments on the financials. Wonder why it's wrong. Let me take a look at it.
Okay. I tied out the account breakdowns to the balances on the statements of financial position. And all accounts agree except development costs and software accounts and intangible assets. Which amounts are the correct ones? It could be they are both wrong?
Really? I guess there have been some problems in collecting data. Let me look into it and will let you know what I came up with.
Yes. I was going through the general ledger and noticed a journal entry posted in November. Debit other accounts payable 300,000 credit cash 300,000. Why were these posted with a negative figure?
Oh, that was on the NAC Corporation. We understood that the payables were settled by paying out 300,000 Korean won, but found out during the November closing that they weren't actually paid. That's why we came up with posting a negative figure journal entry.
Okay. For PL, there are two new accounts which are booked as printing expenses and office supplies expenses. Haven't these expenses occurred in the past?
The amount of the two accounts were trivial until last year and were treated as supplies expenses. From this year, under the President's instructions, there was a large increase in book buying for employee training purposes. Regarding the office supplies expenses, the multifunctional printer fee and the unit cost of A4 paper have increased. That's why we treated them as separate accounts.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 24. 채권채 무조에서 발송 준비.
The client is finally finished with the closing and the account breakdowns have arrived on email. How should I move forward with the sampling of receivables and payables?
Could you prepare a table showing the breakdown of AR and AP comparative to those of last year? Let's sample 10 new confirming parties, 10 largest Rs in numbers, 10 APs. Which had an amount last year, yet are of no or little value this year, making a total of about 30.
Okay. Let me work on it and I'll let you know.
About 30 minutes later.
I've done the sampling as you've told me to.
Good. Could you reach out to the client and have the names, addresses, phone numbers of the confirming party ready? You may use a control sheet template and send it to the client. Once the client gets back to you, you should dial them all and make sure that the addresses and the respective names are all correct. Once confirmed, you may send the confirmations out to the confirming parties.
Okay, thanks.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 25. 업무 스코프 확인.
During this audit period, could you work on AR and sales, inventory and COGS, tangible and intangible assets and annual and monthly leave benefits?
All right. Should I be working on the AR confirmations as well?
No, you don't have to. You may let one of the new staff members work on it. You should work on the sampling though, based on the AR details provided by the client. You may pass the sampling work you've done on to one of the new staff members and let him or her work on sending out the confirmations.
Is there anything that I need to pay extra attention to in inventory and COGS?
Regarding provisions on inventory, the provision rate was calculated on the basis of activity analysis last year. And there were disagreements between us and the client as the rate applied by the client was a way off from what we insisted on. The rate the client applied was 20%, whereas we offered them to apply 60%, and I think we came to a compromise on about 30% at the end. Please take extra care in the provision rate applied by the client and have all your work including communicating with the client documented.
Okay, and you want me to work on the annual and monthly leave benefits. Do I also need to work on payroll?
Are working papers for benefits and payroll separate? You may just work on the benefits. I'll let Chulsu work on payroll.
Great, thanks.
First of all, today, I want you to work on the AR sampling and review the annual and monthly leave benefit liabilities prepared by the client. The annual and monthly leave benefit liabilities are large in number, and we should quickly check whether there are any mistakes in its calculation.
Roger that. I'll let you know when I'm done.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 26. 업무 우선순위 확인.
I emailed the first version of the accounting worksheet yesterday, and how are you getting along with the analytical review?
What? I was in the middle of preparing the working paper for tangible assets. I'm now working on the acquisition document list to request to the client.
Look, when you're working at a client site, analytical review should be the top priority. The reason for this is to assess risks in level of financial statements as a whole and to identify significant misstatements. You may work on the working papers slightly later.
Oh, I see. Sorry about that.
If you open up the accounting worksheet I sent you, you'll see names put down next to the accounts. Out of the accounts that are assigned to you, including the tangible assets, please provide explanation on the right cell for accounts that are marked with, to be looked into.
No problem. I also need to work on the sampling of receivables and payables for confirmations that need to be sent out. Which one between analytical review and sampling do you want me to work on first?
Sampling also needs to be done right away. Let me do the sampling. Could you start working on the analytical procedures right away and get back to me today before you leave?
Yes, I'll begin with it right away.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해주세요. 27. 상사에게 도움 요청.
Minho. I'm reviewing the borrowings data prepared by the client, and I'm working on the lead schedule at the moment. For prior working paper, I can see that there are both increase and decrease for this account. And I was wondering whether there are any data where I can see them for this year? Or is it okay if I just add them up and mark it as a change?
No, that's not okay. We need both the increase and decrease of the borrowings. As these affect the statements of cash flows, we need to figure them out separately instead of the net amount. If you open up the trial balance of totals, you will be able to find the sum of debits and credits for borrowings. Sum of credits less the prior amount would be the borrowing increase amount, and the sum of debits itself would be the decrease amount, right? Please do the same for tangible assets to figure out the increase and decrease in the trial balance of totals.
Certainly. I'm also trying to upload the working paper that I prepared last time at attending the physical inventory. Counting on to the project DB, and this weird error message keeps popping up. I just don't have a clue. It looks fine until I open up the inventory step, but when I try to close after saving it, a weird warning message keeps popping up. I may move on, but this makes me feel uneasy.
Oh, could you open up the DB? Let me walk you through. Have you pressed the DB replicate button on the main screen? You should always press the DB replicate button at start and finish when working on the DB. Otherwise, you will be very likely to come across errors as such.
Aha. I just asked because I couldn't clearly understand what the warning message exactly meant. Could you take the trouble to send me the final version of the accounting worksheet for last year, by the way? I remember that you sent it already last time, but sorry to tell you that it has been deleted.
Absolutely. We'll let you have it right away.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해주세요. 28. 기준서, 규정, 법률 검색.
Hey Sarah, about the time deposit 1 billion Korean won and MMDA 2 billion Korean won the company holds, the client has them both classified as cash and cash equivalents. I'm good with MMDA, but doesn't the time deposit need to be classified as a short-term financial instrument?
Oh really? Leaving it as cash looks fine to me.
Why do you think so? Could you look up the accounting standards on the definition of cash and short-term financial instrument and discuss this again with me? Bear in mind that the client is a non-public entity. Thus look up the accounting standards for non-public entities, instead of IFRS. After a while.
I looked it up and I guess you are correct, Minho. According to paragraph 2.35 Accounting Standards for Non-Public Entities, cash and cash equivalents are financial instruments with original maturities of 3 months or less. Time deposits of the company that amount to 1 billion Korean won all have a maturity of 1 year. And they should be classified as short-term financial instruments as part of current assets instead of cash and cash equivalents as of the reporting date.
Good. What needs to be disclosed regarding cash and cash equivalents according to the accounting standards?
Per para 3.7 Accounting Standards for Non-Public Entities, restricted deposits shall be disclosed considering the materiality of information. I also referred to a couple of audit reports that are prepared in accordance with the accounting standards for non-public entities and only restricted deposits, if any, were disclosed in the cash-related notes.
Right. I see what you mean.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해주세요. 29. 분석적 절차 실시 BS.
Looks like cash has increased a lot. What are the reasons?
40 billion Korean won increased due to the capital increase. The client is planning on a repayment of borrowings and an investment in facilities during January, thus leading to an increase in cash and cash equivalents.
What are the reasons for the increase in accounts receivable?
The company's policy on accounts receivable is to have them collected the next month. For Loxons that take up most of the sales of the company, most accounts receivable of the previous month are collected during the next month. The December sales to Loxons have increased by 300 million Korean won compared to the same month previous year. Thus led to an increase in accounts receivable by about 350 million Korean won.
What are the reasons for the increase in raw material?
Wall plates take up the most part of raw material and the company has approximately 45,000 pieces in stock, keeping them for production purposes. Orders have drastically increased this year, thus leading to an increase in the wall plate in stock.
What is the purpose of acquiring investment securities?
This was an investment on the Luxembourg corporate. The company holds 8% of the shares, whereas Loxens, the parent, holds 43%. The Luxembourg corporate was established in collaboration with Loxens to promote foreign business. There are 3 more investors including TD Holdings other than the 2. Luxembourg corporate is understood as the manufacturer, seller and exporter of electronic components and semiconductors.
What are the reasons for the decrease in machinery?
Factory in Xiaonan was shut down during the year. 10% of the machinery in amount decreased. And it was found out that there were hardly any residual values in them. Loss on disposal of tangible assets was recognized accordingly.
What are the reasons for the decrease of other accounts payable?
There was a purchase of machinery from PP Corporation during the previous year and it was left unpaid as of the previous year end. As this 5 billion Korean won was paid early this year, other accounts payable decreased significantly.
I understand that the company borrowed additional 2 billion Korean won from KB Kookmin Bank. But the increase in the long-term borrowings only amounts to 900 million. Please explain.
Long-term borrowing 2 billion Korean won came from KB Kookmin Bank. And as of current year-end, 1.1 billion has been reclassified to its current portion as its maturity falls within 1 year from the reporting date.
Please explain the increase in paid-in capital in excess of par value.
There was an issuance in stocks by 1 million shares during the current year and paid-in capital in excess of par value increased by 9 billion Korean won due to the differences in the offering price per share, 10,000 Korean won, and the par value, 1,000 Korean won. On top of that, listing fees, corporate presentation fees and others amounting to 1 billion Korean won have been deducted from paid-in capital in excess of par value account, thus leading to a total increase of 8 billion Korean won.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 30. 분석적 절차 실시 PL.
Please explain in detail the reasons for the increase in sales.
All sales until last year were related to Samsung and LG TV semiconductors. Sales have started to occur this year in the flash products, which were under development, and their sales have accumulated to approximately 37 billion Korean won during this year. Even though the sales related to TV semiconductors have decreased by 50 billion Korean won, new sales to Philips have occurred by 30 billion, and as semiconductor sales to a company exporting TV to China have increased by 18 billion Korean won, the sales in total have increased by 35 billion Korean won, in net amount.
Why did salaries from sales and administrative expenses increase so much?
Salaries to the staff in sales department and business management team are accounted for as sales and administrative expenses. As the company got bigger in size, the number of staff in those divisions have increased by 15, from 12 previous year to 27 current year. There was also a raise in salaries at about 10% in average, which led to an increase in salaries in S&A expenses by 150 million Korean won.
Commission and fees have decreased a lot compared to previous year.
Right. As the factory in Masan opened last year, brokerage fee 200 million Korean won, legal expenses 300 million Korean won and others have occurred, accumulated to 700 million, and were accounted for as commission and fees. There were no openings of new factories this year.
What are the reasons for the increase in taxes and dues?
There was an additional tax levied to the client due to restrictions amounting to approximately 200 million Korean won. And some partial increase effect of property taxes and real estate holding taxes.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 31. 현금 및 현금 등가물.
The cash holding of the company amounts to 10 billion Korean won and it takes up 40% of the whole assets, which is very, very high, and it increased drastically close to the year-end. How does the client explain this?
The client explains to have secured a large amount of cash planning to purchase an unlisted stock during January.
Did you check it during the cash physical count?
Yes, I did the physical count directly in the president's room. And the client presented me with 10 cashier's check. each 1 billion Korean won worth, and found out there were no exceptions noted in amount.
Did you see that the requester of issuance of those checks are named after the client?
I don't exactly remember.
It is a must to confirm whether the requester of issuance of checks are named after the client. So could you take the trouble to make a request to the client once again to check that out? You are definitely going with me then. I also noticed some details on the stock purchase by going through the minutes of the board of directors. And we should obtain the stock purchase contract and the bank book of the stock seller to make sure that money was actually paid.
Absolutely. I'll talk to the client and we'll get back to you.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 32. 매출 채권.
The AR turnover ratio of the client is in a declining tendency from the first quarter through the year end. This means that the collection period of AR is getting longer, and we need to make sure that the client came up with sufficient allowances.
I agree. I understand that the client's policy is to have most of their AR collected within 3 months from sale. I'll find out how much their AR are uncollected for a long period.
Besides, Presume is the landlord of the training center of the company and 100 million Korean won is accounted for as leasehold deposits. There's also an AR to Presume amounting to 30 million, which means that Presume owes the client 130 million. The client insists that the 2-year lease contract terminated during the year and was extended for another 2 years. We need to verify this. Not just reviewing the lease contract but also sending out a confirmation to Presume are deemed to be necessary. Put leasehold deposits 100 million and AR 30 million as separate items on the confirmation and let Presume confirm.
Do the deposits and the AR have to be put down as separate items? Could I just put down receivables worth 130 million instead?
We must put them down separately as the client may have an incentive to overstate AR. It could be the case that the leasehold deposits may have increased to 130 million when the contract was extended. Who knows? The client may have left the deposit as 100 million and come up with a fictitious 30 million AR to fluff it up. I certainly hope that it's not the case, but we need to put them down separately to check the overstatement of AR.
Oh, I see. I'll make sure to put them down separately on the confirmation and send it out to Presume.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 33. 대손 충당금.
This is the AR aging sheet prepared by the client and it seems there are no AR more than 3 months overdue.
You're right. As explained by the client, most AR fall under a month after occurrence and thus the allowances appropriated are only the minimum amount. I somehow think that the allowances are left untouched. We need to perform additional procedures on these.
How shall I perform additional procedures?
First and foremost, perform a recalculation on the allowance and see that it follows the client's policy. As appropriateness of assumptions and policies the client applied have already been reviewed, don't think you need to go over those again this time.
Sure. I'll be done with that shortly.
When you're done with the recalculations, why don't we select the 10 largest AR, and ask for original evidences of them? Such as tax invoices? Make sure the occurrence dates of AR you see on the original evidences agree to those on the AR aging sheet. This is to gain comfort on the actual occurrence dates of the AR.
No problem. I'll work on the recalculation first, select the 10 largest AR and ask for their original evidences.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 34. 대여금, 선급금.
I'm working on the short-term loans to employees at the moment and firstly, these take up to about 10% of the entire assets. This seems to be material even though it's an item on other assets.
Right. Who are the debtors?
There are names, positions and departments of them on the breakdown along with the loan amount. It shows that there are 15 employee debtors and the amounts look huge. It looks like the loan amounts are quite large considering the positions of the employees.
Really?
Could you take a look at this with me? Bora Kam is an assistant manager. And she owes 90 million Korean won, and Piljong Kong is an associate and he owes 60 million.
This is strange. It's weird that the company has loaned such high amounts to its staff who haven't been working very long and whose salaries aren't that high. Did you go through the loan contracts?
Yes. The client prepared a couple of samples and even the signatures of the staff are included.
What about the interests the company is getting?
It's around 0.5%, which is very low compared to the market interest rate.
I can see that interest income has been recognized in the interest income ledger upon getting interests from the staff. But we need to verify that these interests were actually paid by the staff instead of someone else. Let's ask for the original bankbooks of about 3 employees who have loaned the highest amount. If the employees are unwilling to hand their bankbooks in, we should ask for the details of the bankbook transfer.
In advanced payments, there's the 7 million Korean won paid to Nalum Constructions in April. And this still has not been reclassified to its original account as of end of December.
Could you please find out what it is by interviewing the client? I somehow sense that this needs to be expensed. Talk to the client first and we'll discuss whether it's realizable.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 35. 선급 비용, 미수 수익.
Are you done with the recalculations on the prepaid expenses regarding the insurance fees the client has prepared?
Yes, I'm finished with the recalculations and there were no exceptions noted other than rounding differences from the amounts the client has prepared.
How did you gain comfort on the insurance start and termination date?
I obtained the insurance policy and tied the dates out to those put on the calculation details of the prepaid expenses prepared by the client.
What was the insurance company, by the way? Oh, wasn't it Hyundai Marine and Fire Insurance? As you get a response on the confirmation, please tie the dates and the amounts out by adding columns on your working paper.
Absolutely.
The 1-year time deposit of the client is due in early March. Did the client recognize accrued revenue as of end of December?
Yes, they did. I also tied the interest rate and the period out to those on its original bankbook.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 36. 미수금, 보증금.
Has the confirmation been sent on the leasehold deposit of the client office?
Yes, it has been sent to the landlord, Muk Tui.
On other accounts receivable, many of them seem to be construction receivables, and how are we going to get comfort on them?
I selected the 5 largest ones in amount, first. And then, selected 5 confirming parties that are not significant in amount, yet doing frequent business with the client, applying risk-based methodology. These 10 confirmations are to be sent out.
The remaining items are still expected to exceed the performance materiality. What are we going to do about the remaining items?
I'm planning to obtain a list on the collected items after the year end until the audit work date. We'll go through the original evidence of the collected items and have the remaining items come below the performance materiality. According to the client, Mina, she understands that a considerable amount of other AR has been collected after the year end.
Sounds good. Do look into the original evidence of the collected items and let me see the results, too.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 37. 재고자산.
How did you gain comfort in the price of the inventory the client owns?
Samples were selected. Contracts and tax invoices of the products the client purchased have been obtained and thus, gained comfort in the inventory price.
The inventory turnover rate has been in a declining tendency for the last 9 months.
Isn't there a need to account for an allowance? Even though the inventory turnover rate tends to decline, based upon analysis of rate of cost to selling price by product item, none exceeding 100% was found. The client insists upon recognizing an allowance once at least one rate of cost to selling price by product item exceeds 100%. And this has been deemed to be acceptable.
What is the information source of the selling price and its costs in the net realizable value testing?
The client receives information on estimated selling price and its costs by each inventory item monthly from the U.S. headquarter office. The client is performing the net realizable value testing. Using this data, and measures the inventory amount as the lower of cost or market in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards.
Aren't there any assets pledged as collateral in inventory? How did you verify?
No, there are none pledged as collateral in inventory. I went through an interview with the staff in charge, and obtained 10 purchase contracts that are deemed to be material. And as a result, found none pledged as collateral.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 38. 투자자산 유가증권.
What audit procedures were taken for the listed stock Nalum Corporation the client owns?
A confirmation letter of investment has been sent out to Korea Development Bank that manages related accounts. I hope to gain comfort on the occurrence and the client's right by means of the confirmation.
I've read in the papers that Nalum is not doing that great these days. Did you perform an impairment test?
Yes. The client's policy on impairment in equity instruments is either a decline of fair value, 30% below its cost as a significant decline, or if the fair value stays below its cost for more than 6 months as a prolonged decline. Upon review, the fair value as of the year-end is approximately at a level of 80% of its cost, meaning a decrease of about 20% below its cost. The fair value started to drop below its cost in mid-September, and about 3 months have passed as of the year-end. Therefore, concluded that it's neither a significant nor a prolonged decline.
The national housing bond the client holds is classified as held-to-maturity financial assets. How did you review the justification of its classification?
It is deemed that there are hardly any uncertainties in the future cash flows as it was issued by the government, and to verify the management's intention of holding the investment to maturity, we're planning to have this item included in the written representation.
Great. Please do so. By the way, there is an investment to an affiliate amounting to 10 million Korean won recorded as available for sale financial asset. It is not material in amount-wise, but it looks like we need to examine whether equity method needs to be applied on this. Let's ask for the affiliate's organization chart and the minutes of board of directors, and see whether the client is able to exercise significant influence to the affiliate. If some employees or board members of the client are a part of the board of directors of the affiliate, we should consider this as having a significant influence. Do let me know once you obtain the files. You and I should be going over this together.
Definitely. We'll let you know once I get the files from the client.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 39. 유형자산일.
Hello, is this Claire? This is Minho Park from Best Accounting Corporation. I'd like to ask you a few questions on the tangible asset data obtained this morning.
Hello, Minho. What can I help you with?
I'm going through the disposal of machinery and the sum of disposal on the ledger does not seem to agree to the decrease amount shown in the trial balance of totals.
By the way, the sum of acquisition on the ledger does agree to the trial balance of totals. Oh really? Let me have a look. It looks like the numbers in the disposal ledger are put down in net amounts. Let me update those to the gross book value amount and send it over to you again.
Yeah. And about the vehicle that was acquired during the year, for the depreciation ledger, it looks like the acquisition cost column is left blank.
Are there any reasons for this in particular? Oh, no, there aren't. Let me look that up for an update.
Great. May I ask for some sort of acquisition documents for the vehicle purchased this year? Contracts or tax invoices, for instance.
Sure. I'll have them ready for you.
And it looks like there are about 15 machinery items left at the year-end after having disposed of about 4 items during the year. But I don't think I see any gain or loss on disposal recognized. Gain or loss on disposal or obsolescence are generally recognized. Could you find out what the corresponding accounts were to be debited for the disposal? And I would also like to perform a physical count on the remaining 15 items. I understand that they're all located in the factory next door to this office.
Okay, Minho. I'll find out what the corresponding accounts for the disposal are and let you know. I'll also arrange a physical count for you to perform in the factory by tomorrow at the latest. Would sometime tomorrow afternoon for 30 minutes be enough?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요. 40. 유형자산이.
First of all, how are the recalculation results of the depreciation ledger prepared by the client?
I'm done with it and found subtle differences in almost all items.
The client calculated by dividing the year by months, whereas it looks like you calculated by diving the year by days. Take that into consideration and hope you'll be okay going over it again.
Sure.
There are a couple of disposals of tangible assets this time. And could you please make sure that the gain and loss on disposal are properly recognized? It is awkward that a gain on disposal is shown. In general, If a tangible asset is disposed, it's hard to get a proper price for it, thus a loss on disposal is recognized in most cases.
Okay. I'll look into the sales contract and also the money deposited to verify the gain and loss on disposal.
Could you also look into the repair and maintenance cost ledger? I just noticed that for building structures, 20 million Korean won in June, 15 million in September were expensed as repair and maintenance costs, and the amounts are considerably high. Please do an interview and examine whether these should be recognized as tangible assets.
Oh, I see. Let me figure it out.
I also checked the breakdown of advance payments, and it shows that 70 million Korean won was paid to Pokmang Corporation, and in the remarks, it says, "Advanced payment for construction. Do obtain the original bankbook where the money was paid from, and we should understand its exact nature by an interview." It can actually be an advanced payment or a construction work in progress or just an expense item. Find out what it really is by doing an interview, and we'll discuss this once again.
Absolutely.
회계 재무세무에 특화된 영어를 학습하실 분은 유저씨 마켓을 방문해 주세요.